Welcome to Breaking and Entering with your host B&E. I'm one half of the team, B,
And I'm his co-host E.
and we're here to prove that no topic is safe from us cracking it open and delivering our thoughts and opinions on the goods, no matter the danger.
Now let's get started.
Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to the first episode of the new podcast, Breaking and Entering with B&E. I'm B,
And I'm E.
and we're here really to just kind of go and give our thoughts, opinions on things that interest us. Obviously, what's going on in the world out there today, but also we have things that we're into that we feel that our ideas could really bring some attention to. So, E, today is a brand new start to a project. How are you feeling?
I'm actually feeling really excited about this project, and I just can't wait to get into a lot of these topics that we've been speaking about
Yeah,
and just letting everyone know our opinions about it.
exactly. And the thing is as I'm sure any of you out there that are actually listening have already listened to podcasts in the past. It's a little bit of a process as we figure out what works best for us and also what you guys like the most. So we're always open to your feedback and just bear with us as we go out and try and, smooth out some of those edges. So that being said, today is actually Super Bowl Sunday, and we're going to get to that in a little bit. But before we do, one of the things that me and E have been talking about for the last, few weeks, pretty in depth, and more so for the last year, as anybody in hip hop has, is what's going on with Young Thug, YSL, and the Rico case that him and his record label and alleged gang are now facing. So, I mean, it's pretty crazy the news that's coming out of Georgia right now, huh?
Yeah, I'd say so. It's it is pretty nuts. I mean, these people having gang affiliations when they're essentially set and rich and they have great careers. I don't understand why they would go back to the streets. Obviously we all know that a lot of the rappers and stuff, they came from the streets, and that's how what they know. That's their lifestyle and livelihood. But after getting their life together, I just don't know why they would go back to things like that. And whether it be staying hard in the streets and keeping their, how do you say,
Their reputation,
their
maybe?
reputation, yeah, their reputation up. I think that's just, personally, I think that's dumb.
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean,
why waste and sacrifice everything that you've worked hard for to just throw it all away like that?
yeah, and of course, we've seen countless examples over the years of the street code or trying to keep to the street code being both, a negative and, to be honest with you, a positive in terms of both the perception of people in the public, particularly, rappers and people that come, from that type of background and use that as part of their entertainment image. But, I think that it's a little bit tougher than maybe it initially looks to just step back. I mean, the simple fact is that for most of these guys, their celebrity and fame probably did not come all at once. While there may have been that blow up moment, there are always going to be steps that are taken as they gradually move from the street into the stratosphere of celebrity, as we see with somebody like Thug. Now, Thug in particularly is an interesting case because he was one of those guys that in the hip hop world was treated as almost on the level of like a Drake in certain circles. But in a larger mainstream, and as not to say hip hop isn't mainstream, we all know it's been the number one genre for years and years now. But there is still that separation of what I guess you would call is almost like black hip hop, like the black hip hop world and culture, and the larger mainstream. And again, within that black hip hop culture, Thug has been at basically almost Jay-Z levels for years and years. But at the broader mainstream. He hasn't quite hit that stage, and so for a lot of people, I guess they don't really understand, how somebody like that is not moving a little bit smarter. And the thing is that with these guys, Thug in particularly, is that his come up, once you actually look into it, is so integral to who he is as a person and just his career in general that it's almost impossible for him not to have stayed involved with the streets, no matter how famous he got. So, like, for example, like we were talking earlier, and a lot of this ties back to his beef with YFN Lucci, another artist that right now is, in prison for many years. Was sentenced, I believe, because of his own RICO case, or was fighting his own RICO case. But
And you would think, actually, sorry to cut you off there, that he would learn from other people's mistakes, him having a beef with them and them getting a RICO case thrown at them the way they did.
I think by that point it was already a done deal. You know what I mean? Like the RICO cases are years to build, and the thing is that from my understanding, looking into it, it's something that's come from almost any regional or national news, is that the mayor, particularly of Atlanta, has had it with the violence and the gangs. Same thing with the governor and everything, and they are going to use pretty much whatever tactics they feel are necessary to lower the violent crime and levels in Georgia. Which, I don't blame them for doing that. I mean, simple fact is that for anybody, doesn't matter if you're black, white, rich, poor, whatever you may be, you want to be able to go about and live your life safely, happily, and try and make the best of things. Life's hard enough without worrying that you're going to catch a bullet just because you happen to live next door to a gangster. You know what I mean?
Right. Totally. Yeah.
So, I definitely applaud the use of, whatever forces are necessary to combat, violent crime. But I think part of the problem is that, it doesn't necessarily touch on the systemic issues, like wealth inequality or whatever. But again, getting back to just the gangs in general, yeah, these guys saw it coming with Lucci's bust, but it had been going on for so many years. There was no stopping that, and they're just going to keep coming and keep coming. I mean, I doubt that this is the last one we're going to see, but right now, obviously, it's unusual because it's almost like having a Jay-Z get caught up in a RICO case. I mean, this is maybe one level above that, and as far as black hip-hop culture is concerned, it's the same. And that, I think, is really what's so surprising.
And the evidence that they have against them too is, they were all in group chats from what I've read.
It's monumental.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
I mean, it's crazy. And the types of crimes. I mean, granted, Thug's not out here, from what I read in the indictments. I don't know from what you looked over, but it doesn't seem like he's responsible for, physically pulling a trigger on anybody.
No, but if he gives the okay to do so, that could be just as bad as pulling the trigger.
Right. And I agree with you on that. Now, I don't know if that's something, like, I don't want to put out false information, and from what I've read, that's not, in fact, necessarily the case. I think the strongest bit of evidence right now, at least tying him directly to a murder, was renting the car for the murder that came up. And, of course, that's going to be fought in court as,
And the car was under his name?
Well, he rented the car. They used his credit card to rent the car. But again, that's no different from if I was to need a car rental and I came to you, hey, I need you to put down your credit card so I can go rent a car. And later that night, I decide to go wild and go shoot up a block. Right. I mean, can they try you for that murder?
Or his friends. I mean, even if let's just say his friends did it and the car was under his name because he rented it.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely like
you're going to be getting in trouble regardless. It's just a matter of how much trouble you'll be getting in.
Yeah, but I think like with a charge like that, it really is something to. Is there anything to that? Because again, like we were just talking about, it's very easy for somebody to, especially when they have money like Thug does, lend it out and for that money to eventually be used in a way that is in the commission of a crime without his never actually knowing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's definitely, quite a bit of that, and I'm sure his lawyers will have those exact arguments and more. I mean, he definitely has the defense of that the best money can afford to buy.
Dream team.
Of course, yeah. I mean, it's OJ level styles of lawyering going on up there. But what gets interesting is the fact that he's far from the only defendant. I mean, again, I believe at this point in time, there's another 28 or 29 defendants in that case, and a lot of them are actually, I believe, still being lawyered around by court-appointed attorneys, which would seem, at least from a strategic standpoint, to be kind of not smart by Young Thug. I mean, if I was him and I was potentially looking at life in prison and I was portrayed as the boss and had all this money, I'd be making sure every single guy got the best lawyer that money could buy so they wouldn't flip, because that's what everybody's looking at, is who's going to flip in a case like this.
Right. And they all can't obviously have the same lawyer.
No, every lawyer, does have to. Yeah, or every defendant has to have their own attorney. To avoid any conflict of interest. They can try to work out strategies that work together and that will benefit all defendants. But they do all have to have their own representation, or they could represent themselves, which of course nobody in their right mind would ever do facing charges like this.
Right.
But again, I mean, you're talking 28, 29 defendants. Is a type of case with the RICO statute involved where sentences, if they are to be handed out, are not going to be small.
They're not going to be light at all, no.
Exactly. So, how many of these guys that are looking at decades-long sentences might eventually take some sort of deal? And as we've already seen, like Gunna was involved.
Right.
Now, Gunna's the one that's come up. I'm sure everybody out there is even kind of involved with hip hop has heard the jokes now. Gunna Tell, the plays on his name saying that Gunna, did rat and this and that. And, I'm kind of taking a step back. Yeah, I know, right? Listen, hey, the Generation Z crowd, I mean, hey, we might be millennials, but the Generation Z crowd, they get pretty funny with some of the names. But, so Gunna got dragged into the case. From everything that I've read, it seems more of like, for him in a lot of cases, just he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, being with the wrong people, like he was never like that. But of course, he portrayed that he was like that in his raps, and that's where it becomes an issue like you were talking about earlier. We're trying to maintain that street credibility, that street image. When you are the one sitting there and you're talking about, hey, I'm going to get my get back, I got my 9, I got my clip, my 30, I got my switches, me and my guys are going to come get at you, see us, this, that, and the other, we're selling all this drugs and doing this. When you're the one putting that out there, and all of a sudden, a video comes out, and you're sitting there saying, hey, YSL is a gang. I was part of that gang, or I knew it was a gang, and all of a sudden, people start to look at you a little bit funny,
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
I mean, we came from that 90s era, and, with the legends, and, I mean, everybody knew back then the rules was snitching, and it has done
Stitches
nothing.
get stitches.
Yeah, and things haven't changed. If anything, it's gotten worse. I look at my kid, and the rappers that he, is really into in some of the younger, like, Brooklyn drill scene, those guys really go hard for that motto. So it still carries a lot of weight in the streets. But, on the other hand, if you are that actual person, and you did not really commit any crimes, but you got brought into something, and now you're facing, 5 or 10 years, I don't know about you, but I would probably end up as one of those Gunna Tell rappers too.
Yeah, like Tekashi did.
That's a name that we're just going to avoid for right now, because you go down that rabbit hole, who knows where we're going to stop.
Right.
But no, I mean, like, what's your opinion? Like, if you were Gunna, and that was your situation that you ended up in, I mean, what would you do? Would you rat? Or, I mean, whatever you want to call it?
I mean, there's a lot of ways of looking at it. I mean, for one, I don't believe in ratting and telling on people. I think that if you're hard enough to be in the game and you're hard enough, to do all those things, then you should be hard enough to take the slap on the wrist or obviously the years that he's going to be taken in. But a lot of these rappers, once they're presented with all these years that they're going to be behind bars, they start sweating and they start telling. But
that goes for a lot of
there's a
people
lot
on
of
the streets too, right?
situations where people have families, so it's hard.
But not even just rappers. I mean, just anybody. I mean, and don't get me wrong. Listen, to any of the listeners that are out there now or that might listen to this in the future, you'll find some things about us. But suffice it to say that, me and he both had our time where we did stuff in our youth that maybe wasn't the best. And we do have a little bit of experience with this type of thing in talking about, doing the crime and doing the time. But there's a difference between, looking again at a few years, which I think some of these guys are looking at, and then looking at that touchdown style of numbers. I mean, imagine you're 35 years old and you're looking at a potential 25, 30-year sentence. So that means you're coming home in your 60s, 70s, if you come home at all.
Right.
And so where does that maybe change the line of thinking? Because I've known plenty of people, both in my past and, even now, that either stood up to and took a couple of years, no problem, or I know would have. And I know quite a few that absolutely turned around and told when their time came in order to get out of doing a 10 or 15-year sentence.
Right.
Now, what happened to those people afterwards is a different story, but just in terms of telling and doing the sentence or not getting the time, that that's kind of its own thing.
Yeah. And a lot goes into also if the crime was done and let's say you really didn't have a lot to do with it, but you were in on it some sort of way, you know what I mean?
Right, and that's
you're
the
getting
thing
the
with
same type of time that these other people are getting when they were the ones that actually did the crime. So if he's in that situation, then I mean, it's hard.
It's a toss-up.
Yeah, it really is.
And you have to look at it again from a guy like Gunna. It's one of those things. So again, we were looking on this with hindsight, and already, I mean, this came out, a month and a half ago, whatever it was. And, in that short amount of time, his career trajectory has just cratered. I mean, don't get me wrong. Gunna was a relatively new artist. He came up with Young Baby.
Do you think if he would have taken the position to say, okay, these people are doing things that I don't agree with, he was signed by them? Is that the case?
I believe he was signed to YSL directly.
Okay,
yes.
so it's a little hard with you saying, with that being your record label, and then you saying I don't agree with the things that they're doing, but they're the ones that are putting food on your table.
Yeah.
So he was on a
he's on a really tough level there. And again, Gunna also, he came up. He had that sort of, swagger and of, I'm a street guy and this is, how I move and this is what I rap about and I'm living my raps. And so what happened was, at least in, my thinking, is that not only being signed to them, but hanging around with them and moving with these types of guys kind of fed into that image. It allowed him to portray that, which in turn was what was putting money in his pocket. So, yeah, of course he's going to perpetuate it. But, again, we're looking at what happened to his career afterwards. Again, I think he got into a, wrong place, wrong time. He, gave up the little bit of information he had, which was really amounted to mostly saying that, yes, YSL is in fact a gang, which is something that, Young Thug's defense team has vigorously tried to fight because it's one of the hallmark charges of the Rico case, which is the fact that YSL is not just a record label, but is in fact a gang.
But he's not the only one that were saying that.
Correct.
Right?
I mean, the co-founder of YSL, who I can't remember his exact relation or friendship to Young Thug, I believe is one of the numerous people that also said the same thing. Right. So it's not like Gunna is the only one saying this. Definitely, there's other people that have come out and have said that yes, on the stand that yes, YSL is in fact a gang, but he's the artist, and he's the one that portrayed this type of look and character, I guess, or persona, if you will, to the outside world. And by taking this type of deal, his star power is just cratered. And I mean, I guess that really speaks to the fact that a lot of these fans, they do expect you to live what you rap, and so I guess
die by the code, yeah.
And that's where it becomes really tricky. So the thing is that,
and the fact that he did do this, even though people might love his music, they'll choose not to listen to him because of that very fact.
Exactly. And the thing is that the whole thing, to me, if anything, I feel bad for the kid. I think Gunna, if I remember right, is like 24, 25 years old, young guy.
Super young,
talented, didn't come from the greatest, background, and got a way out through music. But I mean, I kind of feel bad for him because it's like this catch-22 situation, okay? So you can either not rap about the street stuff, even though that's what will get you on, and you'll never have to worry about that background or that issue coming up, but chances are you never make it. So fine. So that's one catch-22. So now you're rapping about it. Now you can either portray what you're rapping about and live it for real, in which case you eventually might end up going to jail for it or whatever, or you can not
other people
exactly or die from it, or you can not live it, and then when the time comes that people find out you're not living it, you are a pariah. You're basically you're a joke because you're not. Yeah, you're a poser. You're a faker. You're a lame. You're a clown. You're not what you're rapping about. And I think that that's tough, particularly for street rappers, because again, ever since the days of NWA, there's always been an appetite for the genre of what I guess you would call gangster rap. Obviously, there's the drill sound, which is way harder. It's talking about specific murders and stuff like that. Which, again, let's be clear, Gunna and Young Thug were not that. If anything, they fell more in the vein of like a 50 Cent, that street kind of sing-songy, like whatever. But, the thing is that, for a street rapper, I mean, the hope, going back to what we talked about at the beginning, is that these guys use their talent to get out. And if the fans are unable to take a step back and be like, you know what, like, we want to hear these tales of what the life's like or whatever, but we don't want you to actually have to live like that, then there shouldn't be this stigma that comes with that. We shouldn't have to need to see the 90 guns in the car or get to see our favorite artists, getting involved in all these beefs or whatever. But then again, you're not portraying reality, and so it's a fine line. Yeah, so it's a fine line to walk. I mean, I think that eventually, for a lot of these guys, it comes to a head, just like it did with Gunna and Thug, and I think that we're now seeing the two different, kind of ways that goes. Gunna, who didn't really live that life, by all accounts, and was really kind of like a good guy, unfortunately, is now being portrayed as a snitch just because he told the little bit that he knew, which again is mostly confirming YSL is a gang. And you have Thug, who is now still sitting in prison, denied bond, is portrayed as being the head of YSL, the gang, allegedly, and is also facing potential life in prison for living what he raps about. So, those are the two types of ways that this thing can seem to go, and it's a tough thing. I feel for a lot of these guys because rap should be the way to make it out, and by using that art, it almost becomes your prison. You know, that art almost became Thug's prison because he rapped about the streets. That's where he came from. But as he made it out, he still had to continue living by it because of the prison of words that he essentially made. You know, so I don't know. It's a sad thing.
It
you
is.
know, hearts and prayers out to all those affected by the tragedies. You know, I know people did die in this, you know, war, had their lives affected, and whether Thug was responsible or not, you know, we can't say. That's up to the courts to decide. But, you know, again, peace, prayers to everybody, the families of all those loved and were affected. And, you know, I think let's move on to the next thing because that's enough of that.
One thing, actually, I wanted to say before we move on was the lawyers were having like a Zoom call. And I guess other lawyers were in on it, and in on the call to listen into the court proceedings. And stuff. And I guess somebody had given the number when the lawyers were only supposed to be the ones given the number to join in on the Zoom call. And one of the people that were in the Zoom call were playing like porn on the background, and the music was like "Free Young Thug." Like,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh man, only in the courts and the justice halls of America does stuff like that come up. Oh wow, what a thought, and what just like what an odd little fact about the case. But no, that's hysterical. I can't imagine being on the phone all serious, finding out about the latest discovery, and all of a sudden you hear bow 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 bow, something. Yeah. But no, that's hilarious. So hey, the next thing that I thought that we were gonna be bringing up, did have quite a bit to do with this movie that I saw coming out that I, wanted to tell you, and hopefully by the time people hear this podcast, it's already come out and it is as glorious as I in fact expect it will be. It is called, you ready for this?
I'm ready.
The Cocaine Bear.
Oh yeah.
You heard about that? The Cocaine Bear?
I heard a little bit about that, yeah.
So, for those who didn't know, apparently there is a movie coming out based on a true story of a bear that found cocaine that was dropped by a smuggler and went on a rampage. And as far as the movie is concerned, it is going to be graphic, horrible, and is, I believe, made by the creators, if you can believe this, the guys that created Sharknado. So, as horrifically bad as that movie was, I expect this to be even better.
Yeah.
So
I heard that this bear eats an ungodly amount of cocaine,
can you imagine,
keys or something like
just
that?
Just a
lot. And I don't understand how his heart just didn't explode.
Oh man, you walk in and the bear's just looking up at you, you stumble into it and it looks up like Tony from the end montage of Scarface. And it's just got the bloodshot eyes. It's got the coke mustache.
Running nose.
Oh man. But no, honestly, I can't think of anything that would be more terrifying than a giant bear with razor claws that can run 40 miles an hour, all cooked up and angry. Although, honestly, that speed would probably be up to 70 miles an hour. Right. But no, so, what's interesting is, what really was most interesting to me about this was the fact that, most movies nowadays, they say it was based on a true story.
Right.
So I had to do a little bit of digging, and of course, as with a lot of movies out there, the true story is in fact nothing at all like the horror that is The Cocaine Bear, the film.
Yeah.
So really, this all came about because of a 3-sentence blurb in a magazine that came out years and years and years ago, or I'm sorry, in the New York Times, the magazine, and it essentially was just a 3-sentence thing that said 175-pound black bear apparently died of an overdose of cocaine after discovering a batch of the drug, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation said today. The cocaine was apparently dropped from a plane piloted by Andrew Thornton, a convicted drug smuggler who died September 11th in Knoxville, Tennessee, because he was carrying too heavy a load while parachuting. Yeah. So the guy tried to jump out of a plane,
and he had too much cocaine on him, so he
rather
essentially dropped like a lump.
Yeah, rather than sacrifice the cocaine, he figured he'd just have a hell of a high on the way down.
I think they actually have the bear stuffed somewhere. If I'm not mistaken.
No, you're actually... So the article that I found when I was doing my research actually said that this was supposedly correct. So for a while, it is actually said to be on display at the Kentucky Fun Mall, which is in Lexington, Kentucky. And it's said to have been there for years now. Now, nobody can confirm whether that's in fact the bear, but just the thought that this is the actual bear.
How about the little synopsis at the mall? What do you think that says? Like, bear, like 8 kilos of cocaine, like little kids walking by just reading that.
Oh, man. Here lies the bear that died after only murdering 2 or 3 people after ingesting godly amounts of coke. But I mean, I can't imagine, like, what do you put up there? Like, you just kind of leave it? I mean, it's in Kentucky, so, maybe it goes along with all the other roadkill graves or statues that they have up. I mean, possibly, I don't know. But, no, just the whole idea that this movie actually even got made just says to me that there is a sucker born every minute. There's never been a truer word spoken. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. The idea, if somebody came up to me and I was a movie producer with all the money in the world, somebody was like, I have an idea. I heard this story about a bear that ate cocaine, and I'm going to make it into a horror movie. You know what? Fuck it. If I had a few $1 million, here you go. Those movies sometimes blow up. They make, 100 times. And I just think it would be hilarious to see that.
Like Napoleon Dynamite. I mean, I think that had a $400,000 budget, and it made, I think, $24 million or something like that.
There's examples all the time. Paranormal Activity, made $90 million, I think, off a $15,000 budget. Goes back to the Blair Witch Project. There's all these examples of that. But again, just a sucker born every minute, because regardless of how crappy the movie is, this movie is getting a major theater release. So that means that at least a few, and we've heard about it, months ahead of schedule. So that means that somebody out there not only put up the money to make this movie, hired serious actors to portray running from a bear that has just ingested, Scarface's evening meal. And, directed it, filmed it, is putting it out, put marketing and promotion behind this. I mean, Jesus, can somebody tell this person where we are? I mean, hey, we're just trying to get this podcast off the ground. If you want to light some money and just set it on fire, we'll take some of it. I mean, but no, it's just, how does stuff like this ever get made? Like, do you ever wonder that? Like, just the craziest ideas?
There's so many more other probably scripts that are way better, that are probably die to be made.
Seriously, can you imagine? Yeah, that's the worst part about it. You know what I mean? Is somebody out there is sitting on, like, the script for the next, like, The Grapes of Wrath or something amazing, and instead they wanted to make The Cocaine Bear.
Like, really, what do you think happened in that? Like, he probably did that, ran for a little bit, and then died, and they pretty much just made up the rest of the story.
I don't know, but what I guarantee you is that the guy that ultimately bought the Cocaine Bear script was high on cocaine himself when he bought it. Who doesn't want to hear about coke as much as somebody that's on coke?
Exactly.
So what else we got today that we wanted to get to? I know that the big thing coming up for tonight is the Super Bowl. I don't know what you're doing at your house, but me and my wife are having a few things going on with my sister, and they're bringing the kids over. But the Super Bowl is pretty surprising this year. You have the Chiefs led by Mahomes, who essentially seems to be on his way to becoming like the next Brady, but more athletic. He's literally seems to be on his way there with all the Super Bowl appearances already. And then you have the Eagles, who have just been absolutely annihilating everybody. And out of the two teams, you have something that has never happened before in his Super Bowl history, which is the fact that you have two African American quarterbacks facing off for the first time. So you have Mahomes, and
Really, that's the first time, huh?
yeah, and you do, and then you have Jalen Hurts, who has been playing absolute lights out, particularly in this postseason. The Eagles have just been decimating their opponents every week.
That's good.
Yeah,
Who are you going for?
Honestly, it's hard to not pick Mahomes. Just because, again, I've seen the poise that he's shown and his ability, but I got to go with the Eagles, and it hurts my heart to say this. As you know, me and my family are actually front row for that whole Tom Brady, wrecking ball of a team through history.
Yeah.
As we've had season tickets to the Patriots for about 30 years now.
Great season tickets.
Yeah. These were great. We saw a hell of a lot of amazing games, and it really is. It's tough for me to say this because I hate this team more than you can possibly imagine, but the Eagles, I think, are going to be taking it down. I just don't see anybody beating them. They have been absolutely unstoppable through the postseason. Even before that, they cruised their way through most of the regular season easily. And it's just not something that I predict to be much of a battle. I think Mahomes will have a couple of spectacular moments, but ultimately I think the Eagles take it down. And here's my prediction. I am saying that the Eagles take it by a field goal, 33-30, and there's my line for the night. What do you think?
I want the Eagles to win personally, but as far as the score goes, I think it's not going to be up that high.
Now, hold on. You want the Eagles to win. So after all these years, you're still an Eagles fan because of that extra.
Out of the two, I would pick the Eagles.
Listen. How can you be a New England Patriots fan and like the Eagles? Come on. Anybody out there that's listening, if you don't know anything about Eagles, or even better, the Eagles fans, the simple fact that they have a court and a jail in Eagles Stadium tells you all you need to know.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's the type of fans that Eagles fans are. Sorry. I apologize if any of you guys have gotten this far with us on the first episode, are actually interested in listening, and you are Eagles fans. I apologize. I'm sure we'll never hear from you again. But honestly, fuck you guys.
Fans, though, right?
Yeah, fuck you guys. I have had drinks thrown at me by Eagles fans. I have almost gotten in fights with Eagles fans, and this extends to my own family.
And I bet that's at the Patriots.
Oh, absolutely.
Not even
but I said this extends to my own family. My mother's family originates from Pennsylvania, or from the Philly area. My grandfather was back and forth between New York and Philly at a very young age. He started out, I believe, in Philly for the very, very first few years, and so retained some love for it before moving to New York, and that's where he mostly grew up. But in any case, I have a uncle and a cousin who their family are absolute Eagles fanatics, and it has been a rivalry for years with us. Now, it also happens to be the uncle that I dislike the most in my family, so nothing ever gave me more joy than to see him at the next family function and siding up to him and saying, "Hey, buddy, how badly did Tom crush your team the other week? Was it 20 points or 30? Oh, nothing gave me more pleasure, man. Oh, the look on his face. And I got a text that I have just refused to open from my cousin, and I just know it's saying something about the Eagles. And you know what, Scott? Just because I really hate that team and you for sending this to me, I'm going to leave you on unread. Never opening it. You're never going to get the satisfaction. In fact, I'm going to delete it as we're speaking. Fuck the Eagles.
That's too funny.
Oh, man. So, no, but really, on to what I think is the thing that more people actually care about than the Eagles. It's going to see the hottest woman in the history of Barbados, Rihanna, take center stage. Baby bump and all. ASAP Rocky, you are a lucky man. But I tell you one thing,
She's doing the halftime show?
Yeah, you didn't. How did you not know this? Come on, this has been some of the biggest news coming up for months and months. Yeah, Rihanna.
The halftime show is bigger than the actual game itself.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing is that listen. Normally, I would say Rihanna's got the no problem setting the field aflame. She's gonna come out and rock it. But last year's show was a type of show that I never thought we would see. I mean, it was months and months until we stopped even hearing about it. I mean, you had Dre, M50, Mary J, Kendrick, Snoop. I mean, you had the legends of legends all in one place performing like that, in just a medley of Dr. Dre's career from beginning to end, with the little dashes of each era peppered throughout, and it was just amazing. It was absolutely spectacular, and if I was Rihanna, I would be coming into that thinking, I need to beat this, but how? And that's, what, though?
I'm sure she has something up her sleeve, though.
I was going to say, if there's one person that probably could do it, it would be Rihanna. I mean, she's been laying down hits since she was barely out of high school, and, I would love to hear her voice live. I mean, she's someone that really seemed to take kind of a back seat, or music really seemed to take kind of a back seat for her once she started getting all that Fendi money. And I don't blame her. I mean, music got her into, becoming a millionaire, maybe even, tens of millions or whatever. But it was the Fendi that really took her into the stratosphere of being a billionaire.
Just like JC turning Fendi into fentanyl.
Exactly. Hey, just like Hov said in that verse, he can't count 3 billionaires that came from his tree. Him, Ye, and Ree.
And Braun, he's a rap boy.
Braun is a rock boy. Rock boy. Come on. But Braun is a rock boy, so it's 4 technically. Now Hov is right. We'll get to that a little bit later when it comes to talking about shows. But I'm really looking forward to Rihanna perform. The girl's got an unbelievable voice.
Yeah.
I mean, unbelievable. And
for how small she is, she's just
where does it come from?
Yeah. It's amazing. I think she's angel. Her voice is so nice.
And then you got what's really cool.
I'm wondering who she's gonna have, because with all these halftime shows, there's always a surprise that they bring out. A person.
I mean, honestly, my thinking is that there's got to be some way that they're gonna work Rocky in, and I almost kind of hope they don't.
Does she have a song with him at all, featuring?
I think they have a couple of songs together. I'm sure they do. But, I mean, it's more the fact that, I can't remember exactly how pregnant she is, but she's definitely pretty far along. That little prince is coming along anytime soon. And believe me when I say that boy is going to live like a prince. And, hey, with parents like them, whew, lucky. That kid chose correctly when it came to picking parents. But no, I do think that it would be pretty cool in that respect to kind of highlight her pregnancy. I think that's something that hasn't been done, and that's something that definitely can, showcase the femininity and, which is I'm sure something that they're trying to bring and show the power of, just her as a woman. But I really hope it isn't
and
Rocky.
her as a mother,
Yeah.
just being pregnant and just seeing how beautiful and natural that is, and we're gonna probably have people that are gonna be twisting and turning it after it's all said and done, and she does her performance, but.
Oh, there's some people that are just never gonna want to. There's people out there. They're just never happy about anything. There'll be people that complain about something always. But I mean, like I said, her performance. I'm looking forward to seeing Riri perform. I hope that the special, guest that is most likely to pop up is somebody other than ASAP. At the same time, I don't see how it could be anybody but him. But really, what I'm looking forward to more is just, seeing where she goes in her discography. You got to figure that the Grammy song, or the Grammy winning song from Wakanda Forever is going to be something that she performs just because it really has that kind of majestic, like, stadium status sound. But as far as the rest of her career, I mean, she can go anywhere. I mean, this is the girl that, was putting down tracks like Umbrella back in 2012 or 14 or whatever it was, and was laying hits every record since. So that's what I really am wondering. What song would you most want to hear?
From Rihanna. I don't know the name of it, to be honest. It's one of her most recent ones that they're always playing. She's like, "Give it up, give it up."
Oh, I know what song. Oh my God. Turn it up, turn it up. I know. Why can't I think?
Yeah,
But I know what song. I know what song. I know what
song
song you're talking about. Yeah, I know what song you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's a good track. Honestly, if I could hear anything by her, that's a tough ass. You know what? Simply because it's probably one of the first songs that most people really heard from her. I would love to hear Umbrella. It's cool. I actually went back and watched her performance. It was I think the first time she ever performed at the VMAs. It was the first time Chris Brown ever performed on the VMAs, and that she performed Umbrella, and he performed a couple other things, and that was an amazing performance. Now, obviously, it was something that turned into a horror show for both of them a little bit later on in their careers. But, suffice it to say that, at least at that moment, that was a meeting of two future megastars that had a talent that you just rarely see. And her voice, in re-listening to it, was so amazing. I would love to hear it again, because it's not something that I'm sure she's performed in many, many years. Yeah. I doubt she's performed that in years. May even hate it. You know how they always say a lot of artists hate their most successful song?
Right.
Because they can't stand performing it. I mean, can you imagine how sick that little dreadlocked kid, what's his name? Pump. Little Pump is from hearing the song Gucci Gang. He probably wants to blow his brains out every time he hears that song.
Gucci Gang, Gucci Gang, Gucci Gang.
Oh, God, I remember when you showed me that song. I thought rap had died forever. But, hey, yep, that's just me. I'm an old head. I prefer my rap, at a certain genre, style and era. But I do like, newer stuff. But that was one I couldn't deal with. But, yeah, can you imagine just having to sing one song over and over and over your whole career? And not because you don't have any other hits. At least Riri's got a fuck ton of hits.
Right. I mean, how many albums does she have?
Gotta be 9 or 10 of them, and each one had at least a few singles. And a lot of them, forget the singles. The deep cuts were what were really good. Now they might not be known to like the mainstream, but if you listen to her albums, certain songs were just great. And it's the same for any big time artist. I mean, honestly, what would be interesting is if Rihanna brought out Drake. And actually, that, what? Now that I'm saying it out loud, that's what I want to see her bring out. Not even just because I would love to see them perform together, but I want to see Drake have some sauce with A$AP Rocky. Because everybody knows that Riri and Drake, had their thing for a little while. Oh, and Drake's that dude. I mean, he has been that dude for 10 years. At the absolute top, number one, no one can touch him. Not just rapper, but biggest music star in the world. And over here, you got A$AP Rocky, who he's the father, but they got that history. Oh, I want that sauce, man. I want that sauce. So, but yeah, no, she's got one of those type of catalogs.
Yeah.
And so I'm just looking forward to seeing her perform.
Now, when you say, do you think something's going to happen if he comes on? Do you think he's going to...
Oh, no, nothing
I bet they both respect each other, he was with her...
Oh, please. Drake's got that type of, money where, he's not going to do anything. He would never do anything. Drake is polished to perfection. The guy's got the most media training out of probably anybody in the history of media training, And
that's crazy that you say media training, because Jordan Peterson, I believe, has to do some media training because of the stuff he's said.
Oh, Jordan Peterson. Yeah. Oh, we're not going to talk about that guy. All right, anybody out there that's listening, understand that we do not identify, promote, endorse anything Jordan Peterson. The guy is a scumbag to the ends of the earth.
No, I'm just saying because he had to do some media training.
All right. I was going to say, we're not going to get into anything with him because that guy is a complete piece of garbage. And I don't want to sully the talk of the lovely Rihanna with thoughts of that piece of garbage. But now on to, a little bit of old news. And I think really what we're going to kind of close our topic or our day off with is going to be, the discussion with the Grammys and really, kind of how they went. So... were there any Grammy moments that really kind of stood out to you?
Of these, and any Grammy moment?
No, just moments, any moments.
The performance that Jay-Z did.
Oh, the whole God did thing?
Yeah, the God did. That was, like you said, you thought that rap was dead, but when I heard that, it just livened it all back up.
That's something that when that verse first dropped, when we first heard it, a while back.
Jay-Z's verse, because I believe it first started with.
Ross has the first.
Ross has the first
one. Well, it's Cal. Yeah, it was on Khaled's most recent album. God did. First big ups to Khaled for that. We all know what Khaled does. The guy's been doing it at the highest level for years and years.
Another one.
Oh, man. Talk about positive. That guy, I don't know if you've ever seen interviews with him or anything, but he is the epitome of positivity.
He is. He definitely is. He's always, just up and positive about everything.
If I could live my life like that, I would.
Yeah.
But I have too much depression in my brain to be that positive all the time. But no, again, big ups to Cal. The guy's been doing it, at a level that few, executives, producers could ever match. And he got, a trio of absolute giants to come together for just a historic record. For anybody that's been living under a rock, that has not heard that God did track, with Ross, Lil Wayne, and Jay-Z, you need to go and get on Spotify or Pandora or whatever you use and go listen to that song right now.
There's one more other, if I'm not mistaken.
No, it was just those three. But then you have John Legend singing the hook.
Right.
John Legend singing the chorus and the hook, who sounds fantastic. By the way, he obviously, they're using an effect on his voice to change it slightly, but it sounds absolutely phenomenal. The beat is the type of production sound that kind of gives you goosebumps, and then once the actual lyrics kick in. Now,
Lil
yeah,
Wayne was actually using auto tune too, but personally, I don't think he needed to use auto tune.
I mean, Wayne's used autotune,
Oh, he has,
forever
he
now.
has,
So
but
I mean, does he need to know? But he's one of those guys that like he likes to mess around with it. But Wayne is one of those that for years it's a really cool song, and just even in terms of the relationships behind it. Like everybody that's paid attention to rap and really knows rap and its history knows that back when Wayne was really hitting his stride and going as one of the better rappers or the greatest, at that time, everybody was looking at Hove essentially passing the mic to him, or the torch to him. And they even spoke about that song, Mr. Carter, off the Carter 3, the album where Wayne, really, everybody knows is the culmination of like that 2 or 3 year run where he just killed everything.
and he started so young too.
Oh, dude.
Little Wayne was.
I saw him with the Hot Boys.
Yeah,
I saw him.
He was like 12 years old.
I saw him touring when he was with the Hot Boys back at the Garden, and at that time Juvenile's "Ha" had just come out. It was their big song. 400 Degrees was the album, and Wayne had to have been like 15, 16 at the time. Yeah. I mean, it's tough to tell because like I remember for years they kind of changed his age around and messed his age to try to keep him younger or older or whatever. But like. Whatever it may be, he started out young, and he eventually went on to become what we know as today. But for those that don't really remember, or that might be too young to remember, there was a period from about 2006, 2005 to about 2008 where Lil Wayne had probably one of the best 3 year runs of any rapper ever. The guy was on, essentially, it felt like every song. I mean, at one point,
bunch of mixtapes,
everything, the Drought series was absolutely crazy. I remember that one. There was just so many different projects and songs and everything that Wayne was doing. And so, anyways, getting back to the God to performance, Jay-Z had cemented himself in 2008, and he was gonna pass it along, so that having them on the track like that together was already a big thing. And then you take in Ross is somebody that, to my understanding, Hove kind of mentored a little bit, but was also like a big brother mentor to Wayne as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because when Wayne kind of left New Orleans after the flood, and him and Birdman went to Florida, and that's when he started building all the connections with all the Miami guys like Khaled and Pitbull, or Pitbull, I know, or Ross and all of them. Ross really was, even though he may have been in the game a little bit less long in terms of music, he was still older. He was that bigger brother figure. Yeah. And so you had, and then of course Ross, when he first started really getting big, I believe that was also the time when Jay-Z was the president of Def Jam, or had just finished becoming president. Whatever, his imprint was still firmly on that brand. So, but that song is just incredible, and I mean, you tell me. I mean, so I know you mentioned Ross starts it off. So like, what did you think? Like, did you think that, like, to me, I didn't even think that we would ever see a live version or a live performance of that song anywhere, let alone one that included all 3 of them. So the second that Ross went off, I mean, you tell me what you thought, because I'll tell you what I thought.
I mean, I liked Rick Ross. I've always liked his flow and his style. But when Lil Wayne and Jay-Z went on, I just felt goosebumps, to be honest. Like, just what they were saying, all the
triple entendres when it comes to God,
all that.
When it comes to Jay-Z in particular. I mean, Wayne had some real...
and the shark, apex predator, all that.
That's a dope line. And I agree with you. I mean, it's...
And how he was, like you were saying, Jay-Z was, passing the torch to... Dwayne. And Wayne was rapping about him passing the torch to all the other young rappers, and how he
Yeah.
made the path for all them
Yeah.
coming up.
Yeah, and
they
it's
all
true.
wanted to be, they're all fighting style and all that. Like he says it all.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, those guys, and this is going to sound like a little bit of slight against Ross, and it's not. Ross, listen, we love you here at the pod. You're one of the greats. Both of us have listened to you going back to Port of Miami and beyond, like even earlier than that. We support you forever. But I honestly kind of feel like, as great as Ross is, Wayne and Hove are just a cut above. Like, I almost felt like maybe there could have been somebody else on that track instead of Ross, but at the same time, I don't know who it would have been, because he was it was like as each verse got better and better and better. And that's not, and leading into it. And I think that Ross did a great job where he was. But like but more of what I was kind of getting at when it came to the live performance was more of the fact that, again, like, I never expected to see that type of performance live. I mean, getting those three guys in the same building to rap, that just doesn't happen. And so when Ross, when they actually really went into it and Ross started rapping those first bars, I was like, oh shit. And then Wayne got it, and it was oh shit. And then when fucking Hove started speaking, and you know what the swaggiest
like the perfect
shit,
storm for him.
Yeah, and you know what the swaggiest shit of that whole thing is? What's the most like boss thing is the fact he did that whole shit sitting down.
Yeah,
sitting down, rapping like the king that he is. I mean, this is a guy that, listen, if you are listening to this pod and you don't like Jay-Z, turn off the pod. Listen, we're not for you. I don't like you. I don't want to like you. I don't want to know you. We can do without your fandom. Shut the fuck up. Go away. Because when I say that Hove is like him, he is him. That dude has been a guy that has laid the blueprint for so many people. He has, just transcended every level of the game. And he's, he started out as the typical, trapper turned rapper way back. Then he became,
But he was also, before that, he was a drug dealer. He was
a trapper turned rapper.
Somebody, yeah.
That's what I mean. He was a trapper turned rapper, and then and then from that he became, instantly almost like a label boss, because again, when they didn't, him, Dame, and Biggs, they decided that they were going to, start Rockefeller, and they were way ahead of the game with that. And then, all the other moves that he's made, opening up the 40/40 clubs, starting with the Armadale vodka, and then obviously
turning cocaine into champagne.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing. Buying the Ace of Spades brand, going back to, when they were all doing the Cristal thing, and then the guys that ran Cristal came out and said that basically they didn't want, rappers, or insinuating they didn't want black people to be representative of the brand. Yeah,
and they can't stop them from buying.
So that was the thing, is Jay was like, fuck that, and he eventually went out and found this champagne brand, the Ace of Spades, and they rebranded it kind of, and took it to the next level. And now the Ace of Spades brand is in most of the clubs that I've been to, from Vegas to Boston and New York, wherever. It's the Ace of Spades that is being asked for now, not Cristal. I mean, Cristal will always be there, but Ace of Spades is, significantly up there, and that's because of him. So, going back to, like, that verse, Hove is a guy that really, I think, is what we may have eventually seen had, like, somebody like Tupac or Biggie never been killed. Maybe not, but I think they had that type of mentality, but because he came up around that same era and was the same age, but he survived, and he lived, and he had the business mind. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's other guys that were like that too, like
and
Nas.
why do you think that? Do you think, Was he ever in like major beefs when it comes to rap?
not really.
Like, it was when Tupac and Biggie.
Not really. I mean, Pac
He
checked
just
him.
stayed in his own lane, right?
Pac checked him a few times in different songs, like name wise, and like But it was. I mean, that was always made out to be kind of a bigger thing than it was. It was really specifically just between Pac and Biggie. Yeah. But I mean, the thing more that I'm trying to speak to is just the fact that Hove has just been through it all and seen it all. He has risen through every level and exceeded where that ceiling was supposed to be. When he came in, and I remember he talked about like on Big Pimpin' or one of the songs early on about how they were making 40 million or something, and that was like really big money. And obviously this is years ago, but 40 million would be nothing to him now. That's his aspirations are way above and beyond it. I honestly, it was kind of surprising that he even came back and took the mic again. This is a guy that does not need to rap. He doesn't need to do that at all anymore. His aspirations are far beyond music. Like he's looking at the levers that really make the world turn now.
Right.
But it tells you that even though he doesn't need to do it,
he still got that passion
because he loves it.
And that's why when he had that line, he's like, what was he? He's like, you barely pinned the Baha. He's like, that's just my passion speaking. I was like, oh.
Yeah, when he cuts it, he's like, because you can't fathom that.
Yep.
Like the person might be talking about it in their raps and stuff, but they've never lived it.
Exactly. And like that's like he did that rap for us, for the people that are deep into this thing with him in this what we call the hip hop generation, and we're now hitting our middle age, and it's great to see that still be around. It, like you said, it gave me chills. It was the performance of kind of like a lifetime. And honestly, when we brought up the Grammys today, it was really the only thing I was hoping to hear about from you. When I said moments, I knew that was what you're going to go to, and it was really the only reason I cared about the Grammys.
Yeah. And there was another one when he says, he was down 10 for this. We just got his 10 back and went back like to where the interest is.
Yeah,
that's Emery, because he went to jail for 10 years.
Yeah.
And when he got out, he took care of his ass.
Exactly. Hove's always been known to do that type of stuff. Like he's got his crew around him. From my understanding, like there's like that industry insiders crew that he has that he came up with that are now industry insiders. Not just his insider crew, but they're actually industry insiders because they've been in the industry so long because they've been tied to him.
Right.
But like I remember like there was an example that they gave. I think we heard it on Drink Champs or something like that, where they talk about like Kanye or something. We weren't going to get into Kanye right now, but I guess he was talking to like Tata, who is well known to be one of Jay's boys from years and years and years. Like everybody that's around Jay knows who Tata is, and at this point, Kanye is probably worth hundreds of millions, has all these plaques and stuff like that. But when he's talking to Tata, he's still, Tata is still looking at him like, yo, he's the little bro. You know what I mean? And that's because he is, cut from that cloth with Jay. And Jay took all those people with him. He's kept that crew, from my understanding. And I think that probably keeps him leveled. And it really, he lives what he speaks. He really tried to bring up his crew with him, and he's done a extraordinary job in doing that.
Yeah.
While never really,
because people can easily put people in place in those powerful positions, but I bet he went above and beyond and fucking got them to school so they can fucking, learn how this business has worked, instead of just giving them that position and being, I know you're fucking CEO or CFO.
Well, exactly. And I mean, there's that old, expression, which is give a man a fish and you feed him for a night. Teach a man to fish and he can feed himself forever. And I think that's what Jay did, is, he could have given these guys a quick lick, and given them, $1 million or whatever, and they'd be good. But I think, in my best guess, and I'm sure what we could probably find out if we really wanted to at least a little bit, is that he probably instead put up the money to set these guys up in a position to where they could build their own fortunes after that, and not need for him to keep providing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of artists do now that are smart. Like they take their homeboys and maybe they make one of their boys like a chef or something. Maybe they send them to culinary school. They send another one of them to like school to become an accountant. You become my accountant.
When Shaq wanted to get his doctorate, he did his online. It was a course, but he wanted to actually go into a class and do it.
Yeah.
And they told him that he needed at least 15 people in order for it to be a class, but he was the only one that wanted to do the class.
Oh, really?
So he got 14 of his other friends, paid for them all to get their doctorate, and they all did the class and got
Really?
Yeah.
See, I was always under the impression that his doctorate thing was more of like an honorary, like it wasn't like a real one, that he didn't actually go through the schooling for it. But from what you're saying, that
I mean, it was
actually...
like a home, like a Johnson and Wales type thing where it was
okay.
online
So
thing,
but
he made it a class.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's pretty cool. Yeah. I mean, yeah. So but that's the thing is like you want to obviously if you can you keep your boys close, you bring them up with you, but if you're just constantly handing out, you run the risk of a couple of things. One, you run the risk of the people becoming feeling entitled. You also run the risk of them growing to like resent you almost, like in the sense that they have to rely on you for everything, and you run the risk of you growing to resent them because you're constantly giving out. So enabling people to be able to kind of come up on their own because you're seeding them and showing them the ropes and like giving them the benefits and the boosts is a little bit different, and I think that beats those drawbacks or those negatives in every way, because again, if you are willing to put up $1 million, but it's to help this guy start this business, to hire the right people, to hire the right attorneys, to set up the right paperwork, to find the right suppliers or whatever it may be, to get the right like location. All that stuff matters a hell of a lot more than giving this guy $1 million. He throws it in his account, and 3-4 years from now he's broke, if even that long, because he bought a house, bought a car, bought chains, bought this, that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, man. It was just it was awesome to see that culmination of Ho's career. To be honest with you, I don't know if we're ever gonna see the guy touch a mic again. I would hope we do, simply because I wouldn't want him to go out as that being like the last thing, just sitting down like in front of like a group of people that may not necessarily like appreciate him as much as Jay-Z fans or the culture might appreciate him as if we knew it was the last time. But if it is, it's a song that I feel is fitting for him to have gone out performing. I mean, again, the guy's 50-something years old, still spitting, over the heads of, a lot of people out there.
80% of them out there, yeah.
Yeah, probably 90, I mean, the guy's an absolute brilliant mind. And, so, listen, I don't know about you, but for me, that about does it. I don't really have anything else on my mind right now. How about you?
No, I think we went over the topics that we wanted to talk about today.
Cool. So again, thank you for everybody that tuned in for this first episode. We know it was a little bit rough. I promise you, stick with us. We'll get there. They'll
get better.
Yeah, we'll get better as we iron out, all the kinks and figure out what works. But we hope that you enjoyed the time with us and hearing what we had to say. And again, we will have some social medias up in the next few weeks. So if you have anything you'd like to share, get your mind off, tell us how you think. We're always open to anything.
Any ideas, yeah. And we do appreciate if you share and you do subscribe to us, to make sure that you put your notifications on, to make sure that when our next episodes will be up.
Absolutely. And other than that, we hope you guys enjoyed it. Until the next episode, we'll see you guys. Peace.
Take care.